and I'm not turning the light on because I just don't need to. But title of the video, it says centering other people's pleasure was a trauma response. Originally, I was gonna put I thought I was empowered being other people's sources of pleasure, but it was actually a trauma response. That's what I was gonna put. Um, Hold on, let me try to. There we go. And it was really interesting being in that position to realize that. But it was something that I heard when I was in therapy years ago, and I was talking about a lot of the things that I went through in my life and how I kind of like made it my job to make everybody happy. And I didn't really understand like what that really meant for me and why I did that so much. But as I'm older and I'm looking back and I even kind of like looked at even like my dating history and my friendships and a lot of connections that I've been a part of, serving other people made me happy. Devoting and giving and overdoing things, going above and beyond, made me happy. It used to make me happy. My own happiness was not that important to me, but other people's happiness and approval of me mattered. And I wasn't understanding like the disconnect and why that was. Like, why was it so hard for me to put myself first? Why was it so hard for me to choose me? But in the reality was that a lot of that just came from trauma, right? As a person that literally, like, from toddlerhood, as a toddler, I was sexually molested and assaulted. Um, and that was my first, like, my earliest memories. That could have happened. It could have, I don't know if anything happened before then, but I do know I was molested. And I do know that it was by my family member. And I do know that when my mother found out, and her response was frightening. And my mother, in reality, to me, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say my mother herself was frightening, but her volatility was, and not knowing what kind of response I would get from her, and not feeling that she was very much, in control of her own self and her emotions, and just, I feel like I, from an early age, was trying to manage my mom and manage my mother's emotions and manage my mom, um, her responses. And I used to feel responsible for keeping an eye on my mom to make sure that she didn't like overdo things. I used to diffuse situations with my mother often. Um, but that started as a little kid. Started as a little tiny kid, you know, with my mother kind of like reacting the way she did to me being SA'd, and then seeing the other side of the coin, which is on that side of the family where it happened, and seeing their response and how they treated me and the family and everything. I really did not understand how deeply I was affected by that event. Um, because that wasn't the only event. And it wasn't the only time she did it, right? It happened multiple times. And I feel like as a result of all the things that I went through, I felt very uncomfortable with other people's acts of violence or aggression. I felt very uncomfortable with other people and their anger. And I felt very uncomfortable in situations that were escalating. And I've always tried to make an effort to be that voice of reason or to calm things down or to move things in ways that they weren't before. But I was definitely not in realizing how I was internalizing it all. Like when I think about my family on my mom's side and how they would call me or my cousins or whatever to entertain them when they were high or drunk, or they would wake me up when I'm sleeping to go cook a meal for everybody and praise me, because I made this meal for them in the middle of the night when I should be sleeping. Or they would praise me for how well I handled taking care of all the kids, even though I should have been like just a kid myself. But I remember feeling like the only way I was loved and cared for and accepted was when I was taking care of other people. That was the only time everybody was happy. Everybody was calm. Everybody was cool. The house was a crazy mess. I felt like I had to clean it up because if I didn't do it, who was going to do it? And I just wanted everybody to be happy. Maybe if they were happy, they wouldn't drink. Maybe they wouldn't fight. Maybe they wouldn't get so angry. Maybe they wouldn't beat us. Maybe they wouldn't lock me in the room anymore. Maybe we would actually have a happy life and it wouldn't be so frightening how crazy things could turn. Like I used to think that performing was what made me safe in a situation. I used to perform for their entertainment, perform for their distraction, to try to diffuse things, try to be whatever was needed in the situation and in that moment to make everything okay. So as I got older and I internalized that what I needed and what I wanted wasn't that important, and it never really was to those people, abandoning myself and doing things for people, even without them asking, just surprising people with kind acts used to be something that I thought was good. And this grew me into the woman that I had become, overdoing things for people, just giving my whole heart and life and soul away to people who I just met, who I didn't even know their intentions with me. And I got to also understand, like, as being a person that was like, um, what you call that? A person that's emotionally unavailable. Emotional unavailability a lot of times isn't just like, oh, you just don't want to open up to nobody emotionally. especially like in women, right? Like a lot of times women show emotional unavailability by focusing on everybody else but them. We show emotional unavailability by having a hard time asking for help. We have a hard time um, like really dealing with and settling with our emotions and letting people be there for us. It's hard for us to do that. It's also hard to um, like choose ourselves and worry about ourselves. We tend to just kind of like fixate on everybody else and their problems and help solve those, but leave ours unaddressed. And then I kind of looked at the kind of men that I dated and the men that I wanted and the men that I fell in love with and the men that I was just so intrigued by. And at the end of the day, the recurring theme for that has been that I've wanted men who really didn't deserve me. I liked men who also weren't really available like that. And like in my head, I might have said, I want this or I want that or I want better, but the kind of men that I was always drawn to were really just playing games. They're full of shit. But I understand now that my performative people pleasing and my over giving and overdoing was also kind of manipulation. Like it was kind of manipulative because I was trying to elicit a response of love or security by being a source of pleasure. And realizing like not even just that, like I was just also like doing that sexually with people. Like I feel like I tried to take my power back by feeling like I'm not going to let you, use me. I'm going to use you and I'm going to be empowered in the situation. But at the end of the day, I wasn't empowering myself, although I thought I was. I feel like for a long time, like I really like prided myself on my sexual like nature, my sexual prowess, and all of these things, and like being in a place of celibacy and kind of like recalibrating everything that I know and feel about intimacy, sex, relationships, just kind of reconnecting with my body, falling back in love with me, falling back into my body, and really kind of like being present. I realized like a lot of my choices stemmed from a trauma response and in feeling like, people used to take from me and they used to essentially like make me their source of pleasure. So my choice was then to become somebody's like electric like volt of that, like I wanted to supercharge my energy, um, and just thought that it was empowering to be used. And I don't know how to best describe that. Maybe that's not the best terminology, but most people that I know that I was friends with, relationships with, whatever the case was people who used me. They, and it is what it is. Like they were never able to reciprocate or give back to any of a fraction of what I gave. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, it, the point of it is like they definitely they came in and essentially used because they weren't able to pour back in any capacity anywhere near what I gave to them, right? Whether that was energy, money, time, resources, love, affection, whatever. I kind of willingly went into relationships with people who was not equally yoked to me, who I knew were not my equal. So I set myself up to be used because there was no way they could ever give me back even when I gave them at all. But it was almost like, to me, I feel like I was feeling empowered by being used because I thought I was doing it intentionally. Like, I thought I was being some dream goddess, or, I was exalting good behavior as more than it really was, which was just a trauma response. It wasn't an empowered thing. I was doing it. I really just feel like my big source of pleasure came from other people being happy. Like, even just thinking about, like, sexually, like, I used to really emotionally and spiritually and physically respond to other people's pleasure, not my own. My own pleasure wasn't even really centered in them. My own pleasure was activated from other people's pleasure. And at the end of the day, it's like I got off on being used. And that sucks to fucking say. It fucking sucks to say that shit. But that's what it was. Right? Like, all the shit that I would do: cook for people, clean for people, watch people's kids, fucking, you know, go run an errand and think about the person while I'm out on the errand and get them something. Um, Help people with things that they didn't ask me to help them with. Just do things for people. Just do. And getting the responses of appreciation and love and affection and all the things that I got was, to me, like, wow, yay, that makes it worth it. And at the end of the day, what that shows was that I was trying to overcompensate, really, because it's like I didn't have to do none of that shit. I could have just been me. I could have just did me and still deserved love and appreciation and affection, but I was seeking it by the same shit that I used to do when I was a kid to keep my parents happy, to keep the drama out of the house, to keep the adults from getting high and drunk, to keep us from having to be locked in the room, to keep my parents from fighting, to keep my family from fighting. I used to try to do everything that I could to keep everybody happy. And as an adult, those same patterns, I thought I was in charge of those. I thought I was in control of them. The reality is they were in control of me. You gotta get down. They were in control of me. I was being controlled by my impulses. I was being controlled by Khalil. Stop. I was being controlled by my past and my traumas. I was being controlled by all of that because I never really addressed the impulses and the urges that I had. I never had any, like, help. I never really got to the bottom of things. Sit down. Okay, get down. No, sit down. Mm-mm. Calm down. So yeah, I thought I was being empowered, but I wasn't. I was being used, and I allowed myself to be used because I was used to that, and I never really understood that before. But it wasn't until like I really understood like most men that I was very interested in were full of shit. Absolutely full of shit. Like they played games, just not reliable, that type of time. And I was so into those, and the ones that would be interested in me, I just really didn't really pay attention to. I really wasn't interested in that. I really kind of only liked emotionally unavailable men. And it wasn't until I realized the reason why I wanted them was because I'm emotionally unavailable. And I'm emotionally unavailable because I have never dealt with my own emotions. I've never dealt with my own feelings. I never put myself first. I never centered me. I've always centered everyone else. So I don't even know how to be vulnerable. Don't even know how to be receptive to that kind of attention and to that type of affection that is based from someone who just wants me without me having to do anything for them to love me. I didn't understand that, but I get it now. I didn't understand what that was like to have somebody um, just love me without me having to perform, without me having to excel. Ooh. Without me having to be at the top of my class, without me having to get the highest grade point average, without me having to get a speech, and without me having to get first place, without me having to get the first prize, without me having to be accepted into some sort of society, honor society, or some gifted group, or without me having to clean the entire house top and bottom before they get home from work, without me having to cook a 5 course meal, without me having to spend all my extra money, or without me having to do all these performative things. I never had love like that. So when I came across people who were offering me love without those types of conditions, I ran from it because I didn't understand it and it didn't make sense. And I wanted the kind of people who dangled things in my face. And it's funny because like when I can look back and see this, like in the moment when I was going through this, I never consciously thought I'm gonna go after the person that's not shit, right? In my head, I made excuses as to why these people weren't shit. It wasn't like a realization that they weren't shit. It was like, oh, they're busy. Oh, they're going through things. Oh, they this and that and a third. Let me try harder to be there for them. Instead of understanding, right, if they wanted to, they would. I didn't have that grasp of reality because I always made excuses for people, or people always used to give excuses to me as to why my mother wasn't able to be a good mom, or why my father wasn't able to be a good father, or why my grandparents were the way that they were. So I never really was able to like really hold people accountable because I was always given a distorted reality about the situation to justify the fuck shit that went on. So then I grew up to justify fuck shit within people, and that became my comfort zone, right? So at the end of the day, like I had to learn to understand that I really had a poor taste in people and in friends and in lovers and in jobs and in really anything in life because of people around me who influenced me the most when I was growing up were poor in their character, poor in their mindset. They hated their job, they hated their relationship, they hated their life, and wanted to stop me from growing into the flower that I would inevitably become because they felt their blooming season coming to an end. I was stunted emotionally and spiritually, mentally, in every way, shape, and form. I was held back. Seriously. Like I can think of times specifically when my school would tell my parents multiple times, we need to skip this girl a couple of grades. And my parents was like, no, we want her to grow up with the kids her age. But at the end of the day, all that did was leave me bored, leave me tired, make me not want to do the schoolwork. I knew all this stuff already, and so I didn't try. I didn't try hard. And it made me kind of lazy. It made me kind of like just skate by, just do the bare minimum to pass. Even though I know I could do all of this if I tried, I didn't want to try because I wasn't challenged. And like I just kind of started to strive for mediocrity because everybody around me was mediocre. I was never meant to be mediocre, but I spent a lot of time trying to conform and fit in and blend in with those types of people, trying to dim my light so that way my parents felt comfortable, my grandparents felt comfortable, my teachers and the students around me felt comfortable, my relationship and romantic partners were comfortable, the friends that I attracted felt comfortable. I didn't embrace who I fully was because I felt ashamed of who I was in some way. Like I could think of times when I was in school and I didn't struggle with school. It wasn't hard, but I thought it was cool to get bad grades. I thought it was cool to just not give a fuck about nothing. I thought it was awesome to just be apathetic and burnt out of life. It was like I was taking a stance for some reason. I was protesting against being everybody else's source of pleasure, right? Making my parents happy wasn't my priority anymore, so I didn't give a fuck about going to school and being on time. Being the things that everybody wanted me to be, right? Oh, you speak these languages. Oh, you were did this and that. You should do this job. You should be this. You should follow this path. You need to do this. Blah 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 blah. I think I just kind of like took a stand, just stopped giving a fuck about what they wanted, and I just chose to rebel instead. And I chose to do my life in the wrong way. I can look back and I want to see that it was wrong. But at the time, I didn't see it as that. But it was definitely not the right thing to do, right? Like instead of completely saying I don't want to do shit with my life at all, I I wish I had found the courage to look into things and discover what I was naturally drawn to and like pursue those things instead of giving up on the things that I wanted. Like giving up on music because my father said something like that, or giving up on my desire to pursue education as a career because my dad said something, giving up on, you know, business and all the different things because my dad and grandfather had very small mindsets, giving up on, certain goals and dreams that I had because that wasn't what my family thought were honorable, or, you know, jobs that were the ones that they would be proud of. And although I claimed I didn't care, I still did. And so me rebelling, although it messed me up, at the end of the day, I was still kind of hoping to have that love and affection and that support and that recognition that I was still looking for. But I was doing it in the opposite way. I was doing so with the negative connotation of things. I was being a problem child instead of a golden child. I was both the golden and the problem child. And all the while I was going through all of that, I was experiencing other sexual traumas. I was experiencing other physical and mental and emotional traumas as well. And I think that having the kind of life that was so haphazard and just unpredictable and tumultuous, I feel like seeing how disorganized I have been, and how my responses to things are dysregulated, and it's like I became my mom almost, in a sense, where my mom used to like react extremely, and she used to be like very unnerving to be around because you never knew what kind of a response you would get from her. And I feel like I've become that. I feel like I've become like my mom. The same person I was trying to avoid, I became like her, because I don't have a lot of control over my emotions. I feel like my emotions control me. Mm. I thought I was empowered, taking the route of doing things that was hot girl shit, hoe shit, you know. I feel like the truth is that, I'm always gonna be a person that is gonna be sexually empowered and charged. I think I'm always gonna be that. But the concern that really kind of it comes with it is making sure that I decentralize other people and their pleasure, and that I decentralize my lack of boundaries and my inability to say no. That I continue to like regulate myself, my system again. That I am able to experience like quality equally of partnerships, and that I don't run away from them, right? And run into the shelter of instability, because instability has been something that I have experienced more times in my life than I have had peace and security. I've never had stability really. My life has never really been like that. So in relationships, I have not really had that. Every relationship I've been in has had some sort of instability to it, whether that was we were going through a lot of shit as a couple and as individuals, or there was a lot going on around us. It was just a lot of shifting and trials, or there was like times when I would literally just, you know, experience like being uprooted through a relationship or because of a relationship. So I've been through a lot of situations where my relationships were unstable, or we were on and off, or we were talking and then we block it, or we're just not stable and not steady, right? So I chose to make bad choices. I chose to make these bad choices because I wasn't ready to really accept the fact that I was avoiding the work in myself by being these things to others and doing more harm to myself than good with a lot of the choices that I was making, because I really never put myself first. And I, even times when I thought I was being selfish and putting myself first, really was still somehow rooted in serving someone else. I'm not people's servant or maid or personal sex uh, star, or I'm not people's private chef. I'm not people's motherfucking living babysitter. I'm not people's nothing. But I've been in multiple situations in my life where I have become that for people to help or to make people happy and abandon my own needs. And the truth is, like, I've, had a conversation with my spirit team about this, and I've been in the fucked up positions I was in because I wasn't learning the lesson of not centralizing other people in my fucking life and not taking myself off my own path to do shit for other people. A lot of my choices that I have made wasn't able to stick because I was making choices that were based upon other people's reactions, other people's responses, other people's experience of me, other people's perspective, other people's insight, other people's thoughts. Turn this down. You see, I'm talking. And you get down, you lay on the side. What are you doing? You don't climb over there. No, you're fine. I just, I really made other people way too fucking important. But it was my safety zone, which is why it has happened so many times. Because that's what I did to feel safe. That's what I did to feel loved. That's what I did to get what I thought were my needs being met, right? I did that to get my needs. Khalil, you're going to have to move because you keep pulling this cover off of me. I tried to get my needs met by serving other people, right? Like, just thinking about that, right? I had to do that for my mother, right? Because my mother, if her emotions were all over the place, or she was reacting the way she was, or she was spiraling, or she was drunk or high or whatever, she wouldn't be my mom. She wasn't my mom. She wasn't my mother. And there was more times in my life where I don't feel like my mom was my mom. My mother was not my mother. I was my mom's mom, if I'm being real. A lot of times when I needed my mom, and I had to just kind of accept that she couldn't be there for me because either she didn't know how to do so or she just wasn't in a position to do it. And then same with my father, had to do the performative thing for him because he was narcissistic and he really only cared about what things looked like. He only cared about my grades. He only cared about what the teacher said about me. He only cared about what people thought about me. He only cared when I was getting an award, or it was never any other reason. Like, I never got love from my parents for just being me. I've always had to perform for their love. With my grandparents, most of my grandparents I wasn't even close to. But it was when I did, things to make them proud or happy that I would get that sense of feeling like, oh, we're close, or we care, or we have a relationship. It's like I'm feeling this energy in my body. I'm feeling this energy in my chest because I'm talking about things that I don't think I ever really understood or talked about before. And I'm I'm feeling this stuff coming up because it's time to purge and release, right? Because at the end of the day, even though it was my learned behavior that my needs and my were met, and my stability and my security and my safety came from performing for others, being other people's source of pleasure, being other people's source of happiness, doing everything that I could to make everybody else happy, to diffuse situations, to make everybody else's life easier. Even though I learned that is not indicative of a healthy connection, and that's not what I deserve to go through. And although it is what I went through, I don't have to accept it moving forward, right? I no longer have to accept that. I no longer have to lay myself down at the stake and ask for people to let me die for their sins anymore. I don't have to fucking martyr myself like I have. I don't have to sign myself up to be used anymore. I don't have to go through the things that I've gone through. I don't have to let that continue to be my reality. I can choose things to be different. And I do choose things to be different. I do want things to be different. I do deserve things to be different. I do deserve a new life. I don't have to continue to live my life for other people. I don't have to get all the answers right the first time and the fastest. I don't have to be the absolute best at something to be worthy of anything. I don't have to bend over backwards to make everybody happy. I don't. I don't have to slave over for nobody. I don't have to give everything that I have to people. I don't have to do anything else except just be me, heal, find a happy, healthy, loving, supportive, kind, genuine, tender, warm, peaceful relationship with myself. Continue pouring into me like I deserve to be poured into, because I do deserve it. I deserve to be happy, not make everybody else happy. I deserve to be happy. I don't have to center what everybody else wants and needs. I can just do what is serving for me. I can just serve me. And like I've I've known this in my head before, right? I've been able to understand the concept, but like really being in this moment right now where I believe it. Or just because I went through that before don't mean that that's what I have to keep going through. It don't mean that I have to keep accepting it. Just because that's what my pattern has been doesn't mean that that's what it has to continue to be. I've made bad choices in friendships and partnerships and in relationships and men and women that I've befriended and people who I trusted and people who I've worked for and worked with. I've made bad choices and a lot of people who I have entangled my spirit with. But I know better now and I don't have to continue to accept those things, right? I I have the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. I cannot change my past. I cannot change what I have experienced. I cannot change other people. I cannot. But I can change my inherent belief system surrounding love and worthiness. I can change that. I can change the narrative moving forward. I can change my present moment so I can have a different future moment. I can change the choices that I make by being intentional and conscious of the things that I'm doing. I can move deliberately. I can have the life that I want without making everybody else's concern and fitting other people into my lifestyle and their approval and their happiness. It's not important when it comes to making the choices that I have to make for me. And in a lot of choices that I have made in my life, I have centered other people. And I ain't gonna say I'm just gonna stop, but I make that vow to myself right now to change for my better, right? Like, I even like with regards to working out, and I was trying to be sexy for other people, right? To look good for other people, not even just for myself. Right? Like, a lot of the things that I was doing was based for other people, doing things that other people might like or might want. Even struggling as a fucking content creator because I was trying to figure out how am I gonna make this type of shit that everybody is gonna want to watch. What can I do to make people want to watch? How can I make people want to watch? And it's like I had to understand that this is about me. This is about me getting my story out there. This is about me getting my voice out there. This is about me doing what I need to do. That's what this is about. This is about me. This is about me. This is about me. I know that other people feel like being on the web or whatever, you have to find a way for people to want you and talk to you and listen to you and follow you because you have something that you're serving them and offering them and that you add something for their ass. And at the end of the day, like, this is really just like my public diary. This is me releasing this shit. This is me sharing what the fuck is on my motherfucking mind. I know what the fuck that's about. That's me learning about me and being me and clearing through my motherfucking head as a motherfucking Gemini moon. Cause I gotta talk shit out. The 12th house stellium. Like, I be in my head all day. Like, I need to get this shit out of my head because I be having these realizations, but I need to put this shit out. I need to be able to come back and see what the fuck I was talking about and what I was on so I could see my growth, my progress, and see myself change and be able to hold myself accountable to the things that I say and promise that I'm going to do. Like, this is about me. This is about me. And if y'all fuck with it, y'all rock with it, y'all, you know what I'm saying? You tune in, you listen, you care. That's cool. But this is about me. It's about me. It's about me. Well, it's a good place to stop this. I will let y'all go. Good night.